Dhamma Jimden the Shinshaba Dashama Yala Zoba Sanje Ribadan Shazon Demban Devareshaban Jidin Jubun Deva Kalo Juba Lana Meban Hatan Menam Jedem Sanje Dende Bejama Shajantuba Chatan Chuda Jazu Shewa Dhamma Jimden the Shinshaba Dashama Yala Zoba Sanje Ribadan Shazon Demban Devareshaban Jidin Jubun Kalo Jeva Lana Meva Hadam Menam Jedem Sanje Jumden Bejawa Shajantuba Chatan Chuda Jazu Jumden the Shinshaba Dashama Yala Zoba Sanje Ribadan Shazon Demban Devareshaban Jidin Jubun Kalo Jeva Lana Hadam Menam Jedem Sanje Jumden Bejawa Shajantuba Chazelo Chuda Jazu Shewa Kanze Panyan Zoba Jazu Sajendena Komban Mane Jedena Chodu Tezekeva Jala Shazelo Namda Kuma Chodu Suzu Ishe Jazu Seje Pambonda Taban Jede Summa Namda Chunye Jema Chaza Chenjuan Demba Chimenda Veji Sendo Dawa Jama Chazelo Jede Siba Summa Nyame Chenjen Jama Chaza Botu Jeche Tomje Jema Sonaman Jazu Jendi Jen Shala Chaza Taben de Jata Giving as on the Jeje Denum Chojo Washijo Jama Chaza Lavatala Rabda Ne Shengatama Gendeno Yachaza Gibachi Gavapes Sobaje Ramge Sene Yosu Tennis Sanje Karma Ravi Mamedan, Jumaseva, Chuburudan Melon, Tender, Decision on the Solomon Dia, Tom Jessica, Quantum the King and Gada Nada Shiva Latu, Severe Solon, one to teaching the blessed one being the poor district. Perfect knowledge, Sugata. Supreme Guide means unity, teacher of God's to you the complete the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subdued, the shattered, I trust to the teacher, the blessed one, who be the whole destroyed, completely fully awakened, perfect knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, Supreme Guide means unity. Teacher of God's and humans, to you the complete and fully awakened, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subdued, the shattered, worshipping among humans who were born in this year, seven stripes and said, I'm supreme in this world. To you who are I stand with pure bodies form supreme wisdom worship like golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the three months. With a spring sign faced like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the three worlds that are incomparable wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, teacher having all understanding, the builder of qualities that vast worship, to you the one who does this I prostrate. Purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtues which frees one from the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dormant which passes us. Those who are liberated, those who show the path to liberation, the holy qualified realization, who are devoted to the moral percent. To you the sublime and intended virtue. Do not commit any non-virtuous action. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion drop of jewel, a dream of flashing light like a cloud. See condition things as such. Through this merit, the ascension brings a chain break upon the sea. Subdue the whole thoughts, wishing the sun, the aging sickness. Sanje Shala Zoje Shala Chanju Pado Dane Jansu She Dage Cheso Jeba Som Rola Pinji, Sanjay Robashu, Sanjay Shana, Soja Shana, Chajupa, Dagin Jesoja, Sonamji, Rola Pinji, Sanjay Robashu, Sanjay Shana, Soja Shana, Chajupa, Dani Jabuji, Dagin Jesoja, Rola Pinji, Sanjay Robashu, Sanjay Shana, Soja Shana, Chajupa, Dani Jabuji, Dagin Jesoja, Sonamji, Rola Pinji, Sanjay Robashu. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and other vibrations, may I quickly attain the state of cessation. I go for refuge and tell them about it to the good of the Dharma. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and other vibrations, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of cessation. I go for refuge and tell them about it to the good of the Dharma. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and other vibrations, may I quickly attain the state of Buddha for the benefit of cessation. The Shashanan, the Monamo, Gundadona, Juma, to the Medu, Chijuno, Temanina, Kana to the Medu, Chijuno, the Ju, Tadarajin, and the Jinuma Yana, Daga Union, Temenumon, Union, Yumota, the Kanga, Tea to the Gameban, the Kanga, Yumoba, Ranutashin, Yumuchan, Ranutashin, Yumujan, Yumoban, do the Medu, Chijuno, Rajin, do the Medu, Chijuno, Sura Roda Revano, Chidashana, Nambrune, Shidan de Jashadan, Timu in the Yumata. Sura Roda Revano, Chidashana, Chizetra Jata, Yimejivata, Sunyana, Duba, Joanna Kana, Kama Ten, the Duba, Davas, Dona Media, the Duba, Kama, Dubra, Medu, Medu, the Medu, Duba, Yoga, the Jayo. Shadan Yoga Kana Jura, Kedem, the was the Tazuma, Tolomita, Yumebe, the Bachaba, Kedem, the Tavos, the Tazama, Tolomita, Powers, the Bawas, Kangis and Zimba, the Bobo, the Kazuma, Tumjin, the gentleman, Baba Yadan, the Zibayo, the Kama Chijan, 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 the Giovanna, Chijan, the Chijan, the Chijan, Kana Chijan was about a Nijan, the Chijan, the Chitabu, Chijan on the German, the Chijan was Japan, you move on and make it the Shana given you other Shana German. Chijan was Japan, you get another song of the Tata, the way you know, the Tata, the version you know. Get another song of the women and the members of the way you go. The Chijan of the Mariba and the government, Maringa, you know, the Vision of the Lane. Shadabana Bonja, you was such a Bonja, get the Lani, you move Kadar, Shadabana Bonja, never switch a change a lot of a Sheshavan, the Japan, Yusumba, Kangi, the engine, the Lavam, Chaban, Javan, the Shishita, Mozabas, and Yamana Yatabat, and the chance. Yeah. I think we are on the page 162, the sixth round, and maybe identifying those who are vessel for the explaining the profound truth. Right?
I think so. Yeah, I have it marked on just about that on 162, but I don't know if I marked it.
So identifying those who are vessel for explaining the profound truth. So as for the definitive treatises, they should also be taught to not just anyone, but to those who, because of the past habituations, imprints, have planted the seed for realization emptiness. Others, even if they listen to the treatises, the present was the emptiness. The present emptiness. Okay. Treatises that present emptiness will present. Others, even they listen to the treatises that present emptiness, will suffer grave injuries, the consequences, because they are pledged, with distorted understanding regarding emptiness. Such grave injuries, consequences will transpire from like this. Some, being unlearned, will forsake emptiness and will depart to the lower realm. Some will apprehend the meaning of the emptiness of the intrinsic existence in a distorted way, as all of these phenomena are non-existence. So they do not exist at all. They will thus apprehend it mistakenly, and the wrong view, disparaging all the phenomena of cause and effect, will be first engendered and held on it, will come to increases further and further in relation to these issues. Chandrakirti's comment on the following sentences. So this was saying it's important to know the kind of making sure that the audience are more suitable for explaining the profound truth, which means emptiness. So I think there is no independent student. The students become more suitable or not suitable, also depending on the teacher. Right? So, and generally, try to find the suitable vessel for explaining the emptiness. Otherwise, the consequences will be severe because of the misunderstanding of the emptiness or misinterpreting on the emptiness. Because of the sound of emptiness, unless you dislike and emotionally detached. So both the consequences will be following the lower realm. So within the Buddhist school of thoughts and Vaibhashika school, Siddhantika school, I think they pretty much thinks that the Prasangika school emptiness, absence of intrinsic existence is total nihilism. So, and because this absence of intrinsic existence is leading you to believe there is nothing, right? No cause and effect, no karma, no karmic result, and that again continuously increases the wrong wrong perceptions, and by towards the believing that there's no Buddha, there's no Dharma, no Sangha. Right. So this is why being suitable or good listener. So listener is important. Yeah, so good or bad also depending on the teacher who teaches correctly and more through kind of logical approach. So that makes the listener to more suitable for the emptiness. So Chandrakirti stands as this. So emptiness viewed mistakenly dooms those who weak intelligence. So that's the line. Like a snake wrongly held, or spell wrongly, as they incanted. So if you wrongly held a snake may bite you, right? So in a similar way, if you misunderstood the emptiness or misinterpreted the emptiness, or just because of the sound of the emptiness, you find it's very annoying, right? So that proves the weak intelligence. So, and then the commentaries, he says that to not fall to the extreme disparaging conventional truth, because of the everything is absence or intrinsic existence, therefore there is no reality. So this means disparaging the conventional truth. One must not slight the reflection of karma and its effect. So I think that's it. What is the conventional truth? Conventional truth is the reflection like relation of the karma and their effect. So the karma and their effect is kind of exists dependently, and then anything that is a dependent arising and it arises, it exists like a reflection of the face in the mirror. There is no intrinsic nature in any conventional reality. This is how the conventional reality is supposed to be conceived and understood, right? So, must not slight the reflections like karma and its effects. And so not to fall to the extreme, what was that? Reifying?
Reifying, I think is how to say it, I'm not sure. There could be two ways to say it. Reifying.
Not to fall to the extreme, kind of exaggerating in the ultimate truth. One must see the karma and its effect only in things with no intrinsic existence. To be contrary to these two is described as falling to the extreme of eternalism and the nihilism. So eternalism is exaggerating, right? So nihilism is denying or kind of emotionally denying. So two. So I think this is kind of, eternalism and the nihilism, sometimes they looks the same. And some concept, if you say exaggerating. So everything is the absence of intrinsic existence, and then you exaggerate the definitions of the emptiness as, nothingness, right? So I think that's also become eternalism. And because of you define in the nothingness, therefore it is also a nihilism. Right? Eternalism and the nihilisms. Thus, Chandrakirti has stated that that were want to conceive conditional things as a non-existence, this would constitute a wrong view. Now, there may be a linguistic level of a difference between non-existing and not being exist. But insofar the conveying the sense of non-existing is concerned, no matter how carefully one might analyze, no difference whatsoever can be found between these two words. So who is using this kind of line? And I heard many times those what we call Vedantaka, we call Vedantaka school. So I think, yeah, they kind of they use the kind of the objective analysis, right? So they use the objective analysis on the self. So by kind of a deductive reasoning, through the deductive reasoning, and the saying that this whole existing of yourself, nothing but elements, right? Nothing but elements. But within the elements, there is no self. This is what you found is, no thing of the self or I, but it's not a nothing of self or I. Right? So sometimes they try to kind of, because they could not really figure out, and they try to rely on the language by using the kind of excuse through the language, and the kind of the what they have in their mind is the same. There is nothing. But instead of saying nothing, they say, it's a nothing, it's not a nothing. Right? So, yeah, Vedanta school, Rijetthava, Rijetthava, Vedantaka, Vedanta means Ved, Ved Puran, Anta means the end of the Ved. So it does not mean they don't believe in Ved. They think the word is saying that they believe in only the essence of the Ved. They don't believe whole stories. Right. So Vedanta, they have kind of very similar in objective analyzing, but at the end, they always say that. So through the logic, you cannot find anything as an Atma or the self. That is the finding of no thing of the Atma, not a nothing of the Atma. And then what is that Atma, right? Which is could not be found existing through kind of through the analyze, through the deductive reasonings, right? And then this is that very at the end of the reason, right? End of the reason, there is something that you can experience. That proves the Atma is still there and exists as a permanent nature. Right. So this is their use, the no thing and the nothing is difference. So Lama Tsongkapha says, how no matter how carefully one might analyze this, no difference whatsoever can be found between these two words, nothing and nothing.
Just one space.
No money and no, not money is the same.
Keshav, are those followers of Krishna? Is that the Vedantaka?
Yes.
That's okay. That's what I thought.
With armed, I think literally it has the Tibetan. Rijetthava. So here the and is the end, right? So end means the very kind of, the essential of the Ved is the Vedantaka. Yeah, there's a lot of great masters from the Vedantaka. I think looks like the great Swami Vivekanandas, Ramakrishnas. So seems like they are proponents of the Vedantaka. So one goes to the lower realm alone. Oh yeah. Also in the commenting on the following lines from 400 stanzas, one goes to the lower realm alone. Those not ordinary go to peace alone. just, just by reading this line, they just what do you mean by that? One goes to the lower realm alone, and those not ordinary go to peace alone. So which means goes to the lower realms, one may fall into lower realm through the misinterpreting or misunderstanding emptiness and then denying the emptiness. So one who understands the emptiness, right, because of the emptiness and the things existing independent and arising are not ordinary. Right? They are intelligent, they are not ordinary. So those not ordinary or unordinary or extraordinary will go to the peace. Yeah. So here's ordinary and extraordinary. What is the difference? Extraordinary and double ordinary.
Sounds like you're describing a McDonald's order. So yeah, so one goes to the lower realm alone, and those not ordinary go to the peace. So not ordinary means they follow the Prasangika school, and they come to understand emptiness and conventional reality is inseparable, right? So essentially, they are identical. Conventional reality and ultimate truths is essentially identical because of the dependent arising and not independent. Because of not independent, therefore dependent arising. Right? So that's kind of, not ordinary. Chandrakirti explained that some who are not sublime and listen to the teaching of the selflessness only end up going to the lower realm. So who are the ordinary people, listen to the teaching of the selfless, only end up going to the lower realm because of the tendency to either dismiss the emptiness or, second, gain distorted understanding of it. Right? Dismiss and misunderstanding, distorted understanding. So first, dismiss means, yes, emptiness means nothingness. So we don't like that. We don't like emptiness. And second, this is, yes, emptiness is as nothingness. Therefore, and everything that you see is a lie. They don't exist in the reality. Right? What you smell, what you hear, what you touch, what you taste, and what you think, what you understand, all in the reality, they don't really exist. This is how you understood wrongly about the emptiness. So that kind of leads you to, force you to kind of believe, oh, Buddha is just, there's nothing, don't exist. Dharma is not exist, Sangha is not exist, karma is not exist, the coming result is not exist. These are all lies, they don't really exist. Yeah, I told the story before. There was one time Hisola was giving Heart Sutra teaching in New York. So one guy who listens to whole teaching, and then when he come back, right? So there's a friend of him. He said he was just walking in the rain and all wet, and then and the friend says, "Just come in, you're wet." And then she said, "There's no rain." So this, there's no rain, there's no wind, there's no me. Who are you talking to? So that's kind of how misunderstanding of emptiness. So the empty or independent, not the empty of things. So thus both the response are described as a leading to the lower realm. To gain the distorted understanding, it is apprehend the meaning of the emptiness in nihilistic terms as a non-existence. So thus, regarding the individual who lacks the power of intelligence to appreciate the extremely subtle point, yet possess the evidence concede of the having such ability. Yeah, that's also true. Some people, they do not really understand, but they think they understood, or they have realized, and take the pride on it. If they engage with the fervor in their false determination of the mere word related to the profound truth that lies clearly beyond their capacity, this will bring grave injurious consequences. So therefore, we need to be especially carefully with matters such as these. Yeah, and also Chandrakirti, his commentary on his, they're saying Bodhisattvas, some kind of, without realization emptiness, or without, the properly understanding emptiness, and they believe they understood the emptiness, and then they believe they are on the Mahayana path. They believe they are Bodhisattvas, and then Chandrakirti says, this is very, very kind of serious case. This man deceive himself, and he will deceive others. So one may ask, it seems to be difficult, therefore, to determine who is appropriate to teach the emptiness and to who is not appropriate to teach. So how does one make such determinations to indicate that this can be made on the basis of the extreme signs the text says? So what are those signs that that defines you are suitable for the kind of vessel teaching of the emptiness? Even ordinary person when hearing about emptiness, sheer joy surges again and again within their hearts. tears born of such joy fill their eyes, and their hair stands up in their follicles. Such people have the seed of the perfect Buddhahood. They are a perfect vessel for this teaching. To them, you should teach the sublime ultimate truth. So this is also kind of one of the, these are the sign that, so sign, maybe it's kind of like, genuine kind of, someone who has genuine the interest or kind of exciting when they heard the teaching of the emptiness. And then their hairs stands up. Even ordinary person on the beginner stage, when hearing the undistorted discourse about the emptiness, sheer joy surges again and again within their heart because of hearing such a discourse. Tears born of such joy fill their eyes, and their hair stands up in their focals. Such people have what is called the seed of the realization emptiness, the seed of non-conceptual gnosis of the perfect Buddhahood. It is people such as these who are the perfect vessel for this teaching by well-versed masters. So to them, you should teach the sublime ultimate truth, the truth whose characteristic will be explained below. So this much now, just general kind of, introducing the suitable kind of, audience for the emptiness. But it's not really kind of, not necessarily everyone who is going to be suitable, who is the suitable, not necessarily you have all the sign. The point here is, what if one sees the physical sign emerge on the basis of two converged facts? That the person hears the discourse on the emptiness and that he understood what is being heard, then such sign indicates unmistakably that the person is suitable vessel. In contrast, a person does not understand the meaning, or even if he does, if the sign do not arise, one cannot determine for the time being that he is suitable vessel for the profound teaching. Even so, if he adheres the dictate of his sublime teachers, such person may in the futures become the suitable vessel to kind of deposit numerous new potencies for realizing emptiness. So, as I mentioned, so it's kind of, suitable, who is suitable or not suitable, who is capable or not capable, it's not just happened by one-sided, right? So if you have kind of your, usually this is surne node cognitions, your mind is so kind of, straightforward or honesty, right? So that, and you have intelligence, and you have interest in it. So that these three factors kind of, that can turn the person into suitable, right? And that also honesty, intelligence, and having interest, right? Genuinely interested. So then with that and his teachers unmistakingly explanations, right? And that from there you can find the suitable or not suitable, right? Some from the beginning, their mind is not not for not honest, not really, what do you call it? Yeah. Straightforward, right? Straightforward. Some from the beginning means they're always their thought or their thinking is always overpowered by their emotions. Right? So this person is not straightforward. He always driven by the emotions. Right? And then if that person, his thinking is not often hijacked by the emotional, right? So, and if he lacks the intelligence, again, and he cannot be suitable, right? And he has the intelligence, his mind thinking is not overpowered by the emotional, and he has no interest in listening, and that again makes him not suitable. So he has interest and intelligence. His thinking is quite, and not contaminated, right? Contaminated. So then the one who explained the emptiness is explaining correctly and also using many reasoning to constitute or to explain the emptiness. So you have interest, you have intelligence, but the one who teach the emptiness, and that person has not really properly understood. And again, you are not suitable, right? So there's no independent suitable. So I think that's the way for the deposit mean. So that from the beginning you don't understand emptiness, but you you keep thinking and contemplating and contemplating through many ways and without losing any interest in the emptiness continuously, and then you will be suitable, the vessel for the emptiness. So the way higher qualities ensue if suchness is expounded. So when you understand, and then the second question and second thinking is, what happened if I reveals the emptiness? So then Chandrakirti says, when you reveal the emptiness, when you realize the emptiness, all the positive things just byproduct gradually and then building up due to the the powerful intelligent wisdom that understand emptiness, right? The compassion, generosity, moralities, all can be if you have the generosity, the practice of generosity, morality, and patience, and emptiness will perfect them. If you do not have the kind of, the morality and the, how's that, patience, generosities. If you do not have, it will automatically comes to you. Right? So for them, the ensuing the qualities will come to birth. Adapting perfect morality, they will always abide by it. So they will practice generosity and cultivate compassion. They will practice forbearance and will dedicate thoroughly their virtues to the freedom for all sentient beings, all beings. So when you realize emptiness, and you automatically, you are naturally, and you are kind of, there's more genuine in the practice of the morality and the generosity and the cultivating all kind of the positive knowledge and the positive activities. And also you will, all because of you are so much kind of, how's that, you are so comfortable and peaceful through this wisdom, realizing emptiness, and you want to continuously practice, and not only this life, and next life, next life. So automatically you will go do something for the next life, right? For the next life to be born as a higher rebirth, and you will practice the morality for continuously practicing emptiness. If you're born in the next life, you're poor, and you may have kind of less access to find the food and clothing and shelters. And for that, right, and you will practice the generosity for continue practicing emptiness, right? And then if next life you're born as kind of, the human being that has not much respect, not much kind of, respect from the people, right? So you have to make to be likable, to be respectable, and you should practice in this life the patience, right? So therefore, you can continue to practice the emptiness. So, which means the way higher qualities ensue if suchness is expounded. Right? So this much quality, this is like magnetic that draws all the positivities. So teaching emptiness to the vessel described above will not be fruitless. Why? Not only will such listener not be kind of settled with the injurious consequences of the distorted apprehension of emptiness, for them the ensuing the qualities that result from listening to the view of emptiness will come to birth. How do these come about? This suitable vessel will relate to hearing the view of emptiness like a finding a treasure. And so that this view does not degenerate in other life, adapting the perfect morality. So they will always abide by it. They will do so by reflecting if, due to moral degenerations, I were to fall into the lower realm, so continuity of the view of emptiness will be broken. So therefore, I practice the morality. Thus, they will adapt the moral discipline and guard it without degenerations. Becoming the moralities degenerate does not require first adapting the moral code. So here's the degenerations, the morality degenerations. Some people think that morality degenerations is first you have to have a morality, and then you're violating that, and you have a degeneration of morality. And Lama Tsongkapha is not necessary. So naturally you're committing any negative karma. That is right without receiving the vows or with receiving the vows. And anytime you engage in negativities or negative actions, so that is the kind of degenerating the moralities. So yeah, can even committing those acts that are more naturally reprehensible, right? Say, even committing those acts that are naturally reprehensible, which are contrary to virtue, constitute moral degenerations. So immoral. So normally we say immoral, right? So I think that's the kind of practice of the 10 virtue is for the for ordinary people, some very lower kind of some may practice the 10 virtues, following the 10 virtues practice in order to be born in the next life as a higher rebirth. And some, because of the 10 virtues, the positivities, to please the Bhagavan or the God, right? And then within the Buddhists, the Hinayana that practice the the 10 virtues practice simply for free from suffering. So the Mahayana Bodhisattvas practice the generosity or morality for becoming oneself to be able to help every sentient beings. So you said there are different motivations. You have different. The practice of the morality is the same, but what motivates you to follow this morality? Right. Some says, "Oh, I am child of the God," so the God says that I have to do. Right. And some says, "Yeah, this life I'm a human being, more fortunate. So if I fall in the lower rung, and that's very unbearable things to happen to me. So therefore, I try to follow the moral activities, just simply for aiming to the next life to be higher rebirth, right?" And then the Hinayana practitioners, they think these immoralities, negative activities, are cause for the suffering. So my goal is to free from suffering. So I definitely follow the path, this which can overcome the suffering. So Bodhisattvas thinks everything they do, taking monastic vows, the tantra vows, or Bodhisattva vows, any moral activities, they adapt, right? To be yourself, to be able to lead the sentient beings, to bring the benefit to the others. So the different motivations, right? The practice of the not killing, right? Practice of not killing can be, one can be just to please the God or please the Bhagavan, or to be born in next lives, the better, higher rebirth, or to keep yourself from suffering, right? And then one that I'm not going to kill, right? I'm going to take this vow not to kill any sentient being, to become myself, to be able to free every sentient beings. So in here, this Bodhisattvas they find so much peace and so much joy from understanding emptiness. So therefore, they wanted to hold on it, right? not only this life, next life and next life, next life. So for that, they practice the morality, they practice the generosity, they practice the patience. Yeah. So it's the same thing. The human being and everybody try to make money. Some the intention is to help their kind of families. Some they kind of invest something for their children's, right? Some and then when retirement, so what we do, and some people just so money is the most essence in your life. It's not for my family, not for friends. Just this is the worshipable object. So I will do anything for this. To lie, okay. To kill, okay. so all are after the money, and yeah, and then so you see, some can be, yeah. There's one of the line for Kubir, the god of wealth. And there's the lines, so grant me the blessing to be wealth, and wealth that not coming from any contaminated actions. So it's like that. So this Bodhisattvas here, they're saying that chapter 6 or ground 6, saying all the positivities drawn by the wisdom realizing emptiness, purified by the wisdom realizing emptiness, lead by the wisdom realizing emptiness. Right? So that's how this is something that is kind of through this realization of emptiness, we open the gate for the liberation and enlightenment. So there's only one gate. There's no other door to enter the liberation and enlightenment. Yeah, so they will further reflect, even if because of the observing the morality, I am born in the higher realms, I may become the poor and bereft, right, of the conditions for sustenance, such as food, drink, and medicine, and clothing, to and devoted to the kind of seeking these, the continuity of my hearing and view of emptiness, and meditating on its meaning will be broken. Thus, I explained before, they will practice generosity in relation to the higher and the lower field. So now this here is saying that, so they will practice generosity in relation to the higher and lower field. Now, to give the strength and my wisdom, so I have to rely on two fields. One, the field of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas. The second, the field of the sentient beings. These two fields, I have to show equal respect. Right? Where I respect Buddha and Bodhisattvas, I should train myself to show the equal respect to the other sentient beings. So without these two fields, there's no way I can gain strength and wisdom. So the Bodhisattvas, they always says, try to make try to develop the intelligence and make it much, much stronger. And then that kind of, may enable you to see, right, yourself is the student of every sentient beings. So it seems like everybody talks to you, everybody explains to you, and that continues increasing your wisdom. Even that person has no knowledge, but the way he explained, and you, that kind of, you become the fertilizers to increases your wisdom. So I think that's very possible, right? Sometimes the person who has knowledge of how to make the airplane, sometimes it's helpful to listen from the mathematics teacher or some of the students, right? So you can some kind of, there may be some contributions from. So yeah, that's so thus is explained before, they will practice generosity in relation to the higher and lower field, reflecting it is the view of emptiness sustained by the great compassions that will lead to the Buddhahood and not otherwise. So the making sure that your wisdom is strong enough to lead to the enlightenment or state of Buddhahood, not the arhat or nirvana. So for that, you have to generate the great compassion and bodhicitta. So wisdom, so by gaining the wisdom, understanding emptiness, so this is like opening the gate, allowing you to see the liberation and enlightenment is genuinely kind of, genuine aspiration to the possibility of attaining the liberation and enlightenment. So wisdom has that much power, that much kind of benefit from it. But if you lack the compassion, so this wisdom will lead you to nirvana and arhat, not enlightenment. Right? Compassion is lead, Buddhahood and not otherwise. So they will cultivate the habit of the great compassions. So familiarizations with the compassions destroys one's virtue. Buddhahood and not the otherwise. Cultivate habit of great compassion, which is the root, right? Which is the root. Reflecting through anger, one goes to lower realm, destroys one's virtue, and acquires the extremely unappealing, continence. So I think to see the importance of the compassions, and you have to see the kind of, negative side of the anger. So one goes to the lower realm. Anger will make you create a negative karma. So negative karma will lead to the lower realm. And then anger also makes you kind of, unlikable, unfavorable, and looks bad, right? So that's the anger, right? So appealing continence, the expressions, right? And because of these, the Arya will not be pleased. So Bodhisattvas and the Arhats. So that appearance is also the condition. So the Bodhisattva to be liked, to be pleased, right? So here the favorable or likable is defined as a kind of, being beautiful, right? So beautiful. So what is the cause of the beautiful? Compassionate, being patient, makes you beautiful, angry, jealous, right? And makes you ugly, right? So that countenance here, the expression that people can see on you, right? The expression people see on you. So if your expression is constantly coming from anger and jealousy, and you are not really likable. So if you are not likable, that won't please the arhats. So yeah, because extremely because these because of these the Arya will not pleased. So they will practice the forbearance to be likable, to be how say to be likable, to be kind of friendly, to show the friendly expressions. So you have to practice the patient forbearance. So given that morality and so on that are not dedicated repeatedly to the Buddhahood, Buddha's omniscient, do not become the cause for the Buddhahood. Now, so I hear the saying that compassion is one of the root of, or like a substantial cause of the Buddhahood, right? And then the second is the practice of generosity, and then the forbearance or the patience. And then again, when you cultivate the mirrors, right, you can experience, you can witness through the cultivation of the merit and making you so comfortable and so confident, so so convenient for yourself, and you may attach to the cultivation of the merit, and that means you are stingy to share the cultivation of the merit. So for that, you have to dedicate every merits, cultivation of merit, to dedicating for the sentient beings. Right. So dedicate thoroughly their virtues, their morality, and so on to freedom from secular existence for all beings. So the Nagarjuna's, I think he always there's a dedication that, so may I become the useful object to every sentient beings, right? And the way they become a useful object to sentient beings without any expectations. I have no expectation from the sentient beings. Benefiting, pleasing, protecting sentient being is my aim. This is my desire. So, without expectations, may I become the useful object to every sentient beings, like water, earth, wind, right? The medicinal trees, the herbals. So may I become a useful object. So freedom cycle exists for all beings, and seeing that others like Sharvaka and the Pratigya Buddhas cannot teach the profound dependent origination like Bodhisattvas. So the Bodhisattvas, their dedications, their intelligence, their expanding the heart, the kind of expansion of their heart, that makes them very skillful. When they teach emptiness, no Sharvaka and the Pratigya teach like the Bodhisattvas. Right? So they're more flexible and more intelligent. So, Chandrakirti, teach the profound dependent origination like Bodhisattva. They will come to tremendously, reveres Bodhisattvas aspire to perfect awakening mind. So, every day, every minute, they always think about other sentient beings, and they continuously, endlessly cultivating the merits and the knowledge and the practice of this morality and the patience and the forbearance, and constantly dedicating every kind of virtues to the sentient beings. So, and then there's this, may I become the enlightened kind of Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So I think you see the difference. Wishing for other and wishing yourself to be useful to the others. Right? So you can say, oh, I don't want to get up. I wish, right? I wish my friend have a good breakfast. So I don't, I'm too bored to clean up. I wish, right? Kind of my, in your family, if the father is here and you are here, and you're just wishing that your father have kind of clean room, but I don't want to get up. So, and then the second is, may I become the useful to clean up. So that really kind of, energize you, that gives courage to you, encourage you to do things for the other, not just wishing other to be happy, right? So saying, I'm going to become that, right? So that's, the enlightened mind means because this enlightened minds is kind of, this is like, it's not just focusing on the result. It also it combines the cause and effect. So I think that's how you see it for immeasurable practice and great compassions. Kind of, difference between the four immeasurable and practice of the great compassion. The great compassions kind of byproduct, it's strengthening the confidence and the courageous. For immeasurable is just kind of, is a wishful thinking, good wishes to others. So when you have guests coming to your house, then you say, I wish he had a good breakfast. I wish he had a good lunch. So I don't feel like I'm going to do something. So here, may I be a kind of cause for the freedom of the sentient beings. May I become the cause. May I become the one who leads sentient beings. May I become the one who can teach the emptiness to others. So for for those of the great vehicle whose understanding of the view of emptiness has as a penetrate essential point. So therefore, those to the great vehicle whose understanding of the view of emptiness has penetrated the essential points. So a perfect understanding as described above will arises. So here the above means, so previously it's kind of describing the qualities of the realization emptiness. It ensues all the positivities, right? It gathers all the positivities. It increases all the positivities. It purifies all the positivities, right? And then what is that intelligence? What is that wisdom? So it's the Bodhisattvas whose understanding of the view of emptiness has penetrated essential point. So now this is kind of, also indicating that this kind of wisdom is not in Sharvaka and the particular Buddha. And will become the, how's that? Can you read it for me?
I'm sorry.
For those of the great vehicles whose understanding of the view of emptiness has penetrated the essential point, a perfect understanding as described above will arises. And they will become the reverential towards the cultivating the vast aspect of the path. Dachas, vast aspect of the profound and the vast aspect of the path. Profound means the wisdom that understands the emptiness. The vast aspect, like generosity, morality, patience. So these are the vast aspect of the path. Compassions like that. So the commentary on the awakening mind states, those who understand this emptiness of phenomena and also conform to the law of karma and its result. So that is more amazing than amazing. That is more wondrous than wondrous. Right? So it's kind of, praising kind of, the Bodhisattva's understanding the emptiness. So just simply the understanding emptiness, you have more faith in the karma and their result. And you have so much courage and so much willing to benefit other sentient beings. So that's why this is the amazing than the amazing. This is the wondrous than the wonder. Such thing will come to pass for those who have the following two characteristics. So number one, they have shunned the two falls, which are forsaking the emptiness by being either of two kind of unsuitable vessels. One dismissing the emptiness, one misinterpret the emptiness. Right? So one that lacks the admirations for the teaching, and the other that seems admire it, but conclude that reason negate entire world of the cause and effect. So one is simply negate. So they have, the second, they have come to realize that on the basis of view of emptiness as the absence of intrinsic existence, all presentations such as causality are all the more tenable, are all the more tenable. So I think one of the amazing thing is when you realize emptiness, you are no longer annihilating or denying the conventional reality. You have more faith, more belief in the conventional reality. Because your emptiness is emptying independent, not the thing. Right? Otherwise, one will allegedly engage from the standpoint of someone who has found the view, entire presentation of karma and its effect, such as moralities, risk being reduced to something akin to continue the rigid of the rabbit horn. The same thing you are talking about, misunderstanding emptiness. This is like counting the kind of, a wrinkle of the rabbit horn. So this rabbit horn has this much wrinkle, and that rabbit horn has Australian rabbit horn has this much wrinkles, right? So this is like if you misunderstood emptiness, and then so one might come to hold the view that all presentation of morality and so on are for the benefit of those who have not understood a definite meaning, but are irrelevant for someone who has understood the definite meaning. So they are nothing but conceptual fabrications, and all thinking constitute the grasping at sign in the form of clinging to true existence. Thus, like the Chinese monk Hashang Mohen, one will come to undermine all the virtues. Some might say that for now, one does need to observe the ethical norms, at least from the standpoint of the delusory perceptions. Yeah, this is kind of old story that keep happening. Many, as I mentioned, the person who is walking in the rain and saying there's no rain because the rain is emptiness. So yeah, this is also happened during the Chison Desi, King Chison Desi of the Tibet. So when he was bringing the Buddha Dharma to the Tibet, and he sent many students to India to study, they come back and they become kind of knowledgeable enough to translate the Sanskrit to the Tibetan. So I think hundreds of the translators from Tibet and hundreds from India. So all together they start translating, and then kind of established the group of kind of study groups, translator groups, meditation group, and then the Tantrayana practitioners. So the meditation group, the lead by the Chinese monk, so his understanding of emptiness is the nihilism. He thinks that positive thinking and negative thinking all are the cause of the samsara. So you have to find a way to think nothing, right? thinking nothing, knowing nothing is the only kind of way to free yourself. Compassion, anger, all one is seem like this is like you are binding with ordinary rope or the gold rope. So the both are you binding, not letting you free. So there are things that to free yourself from the samsara, the suffering, is to kind of find a way to focus or find a way to understand there is nothing. Everything is like the delusory perceptions. They don't really exist, but out of mistaken perceptions, mistaken thought, and things seems to be existing. So Lama Tsongkapha says, this is how you fall into nihilism. This is how you misinterpret the meaning of the emptiness. So yeah, during the Tizon days also when the great translators and the Chandrakirtis, they're working hard on translating the Sanskrit to Tibet, and the King Tizon also study at the same time. So he studied very well, Prajaparamitas. So he started to kind of, little bit, annoying this kind of, monk who lead the meditations and keep saying there's nothing. And he was a little bit irritated. So then says, so he gave the two options. So you simply just go back home, or you have to debate with a great scholar. So if you choose the kind of debate with a great scholar, if you got defeated, then you have to go back. If you kind of gain victory, so you may stay and you continue to teach what you're thinking. So Kamalashila, right? From the he invite and led the debate. From the beginning, Siva got beat up so much. So he got a little bit angry because the passage that he used to misinterpret are all from the sutra, the unraveling thought. So the Kamalashila, great scholar, and he used the same line of the sutra, the unraveling thought, and explained to him. And that makes him more angry. He kind of, there's a story they're saying that he was so kind of, annoyed and kind of ashamed, and he was very angry to the sutra. He put in his shoes. So, I think there's still the culture is still following. Because, people who are meditating and they don't really care about teaching. They don't really keep the books. Yeah. Any questions from Logan? Today we don't have much people here.
What was the name of the monk that meditated?
I think there's no kind of specific name. They just call him Mohan and Hassan Mohan.
Oh, this is the monk's name here.
Yeah.
The Shan.
I think same thing, Hashem and Mohan. Jai Hashams. So it's, maybe at that time there's only one or two Chinese monk. So they just call him from the general Chinese monk.
So when they talk about emptiness, they empty too much.
Yeah, they empty everything.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of the times it seems like nowadays emptiness, when it's talked about, or like when I first was studying, it always is very confusing because they make it sound like you're, like you were saying, how I don't know how to describe it. Just nihilism is very popular, and I'm wondering if it's because it's easy. It's easy to just say, "Oh, well, it doesn't really exist." So then you don't have to think about it harder.
Yeah, you
just
don't
say,
have to explain that. Right? This is whole like dream that don't really exist. Like sometimes people use the dream to find a way to explain things that right now we are seeing, smelling, and tasting, and feeling, and everything does not exist. This is how you, in the dream, you can also see things. In the reality, they don't really exist. So whole lot, kind of, the reality that you are experiencing are not, they don't really exist in the reality. So they're using the dream to say they don't really exist. And you're using the illusory to prove or to establish something does not exist. But when you say illusory itself is the reality, right? And if you use it's a lie, therefore they don't exist. Lie is reality. Right? You can hear, you can deceive by lie, you can you can correct the lie. If there is a way to correct the lie, a lie should exist. So if you're entertained by the illusory and not believe in that illusory, and that's also because the illusories exist in the reality. So you can see things, smell things, you can do things, you can suffer, you can enjoy, you can excited in a dream. So all the dreams exist. So how can you say because of the dream, like, therefore things do not exist? Dreams, illusory, lie, all exist. It's the reality.
When we see things as illusory, we start to question the law of cause and effect.
I think this is like, you are kind of culturally, you are told that, so two options. Or you accept, if you accept, and that has to be true. If you don't accept, if you find that's not true, and you don't accept that existence. And the reality is not like that. You see the reflection of your face in the mirror. Say, is it true or not? Is there the real, it's a true face or not? It's a not finding finding no real face in the mirror, or reflections as not a real face. So by that, do you deny the reflection of your face's existence?
I also wonder if, because in Western society, so focused on science and like proving an objective thing that is truly existent, like has something to, like, that makes it difficult. Like you were talking about where it's like, oh, it's true versus not true. And it's just, that's something that I've thought about too, in terms of like understanding emptiness and how that's sometimes really hard culturally in the West.
Yeah, I think science, the kind of scientific science also science also analyzed by the people with that culture of believing in objectivities. So that's why because the what they found and what they explained is a two different thing. So they could not really explain things as they found. And then for the public, always they use the speculations. So because they are motivated by objectivity, so something not objectively found, and you think, so it has to be objective, but I could not find it. Maybe it's not exist in this way, and maybe it exists in another way of objectivities. So there's this the knowledge that you have collected, the cultivated through the analyze, but you haven't really being introduced that reality as it is. And also, as not to blame to all scientists, but some scientists, they really think things do not exist as you think. They just leave it there, right? So you say things do not as it appears. Some just hold on to what they have found. Some they have a habit of exaggerations, and they keep speculating, maybe this, right? I think not just scientists, it's not just the West or East. This is the human being, the the fundamental mentality of the sentient being is like that. So I think that pretty much indicates that the bondage means what bounds you in the second existence. What is that thing that holds you in samsara? Is the the overestimating or underestimating. So I think that's pretty much the equally all sentient beings have this kind of habit. So that's why I'm saying the Buddha Dharma, Buddha Shakyamuni teaching is not if you religiously follow and you don't understand the Buddha Dharma, Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching, religiously follow it, there's a certain way, a way of the culture. The culture is not taught by the Buddha, the culture that you use to follow the Buddha Dharma. So you see, if we don't create the culture to follow, to practice the Buddha Dharma, and why we see, Tibetan Buddhists like that, or Thai Buddhists like that, Chinese Buddhists like that. Why do we see that? Did Buddha teach it separately? No. Buddha teach the Dharma as it is, but the Tibetan want to follow, right, in this way. So that's what we see, right, is the culture and the traditions. So we have to go beyond that culture and the traditions in order to understand the the meaning of the the meaning of the teaching as it is. So that's why Buddha Shakyamuni, and you see in the Heart Sutras, the Prajaparamitas, And all of them, there is nothing really kind of, kind of religious to present. There's no religious presentations. If this religion, an impermanent religion, or is it cause of suffering is the religion, or the cessation of suffering is the religion? These are just possibilities, the reality. But but you religiously follow. That's the kind of, This is like, the same hamburger. So when I eat, and I have a different way of eating, so you think, oh, that's the hamburger. If you eat hamburger, you have to eat like him. So, and then some people with very open mouth, big open mouth, they eat. So you say, oh, no, this not this way, the way he eats. But they don't really care about the burger itself and their taste. They only care about how they eat it. With small mouth or big mouth. I think people always notice kind of pointing on the reference. And there's so much kind of, kind of into the reference, not the refer, the kind of object. Right? So when you say, I'm here, and you say, you are here, so you're pointing to the reference. And you also believe I exist here. And sometimes it's not comfortable if I exist here. So, why you're not comfortable? So when you say, I'm here, right? Why you're not comfortable when you say, oh, I'm here? Why do you point here? I'm here. And sometimes you see the Hong Kong movies, and people say, I'm here. So no one has found the I. So some say it's here, some say here. So these are the reference, right? So Buddha's judgment is the teachings, the meanings. It's not really it has to be beyond the culture and the tradition.
Ishala, could you also explain, you said earlier that the conventional and the ultimate view are one and the same, or not one and the same, but they're because of dependent origination, they are similar. Could you explain that again?
I think here, for example, when we talk about the space, so if you kind of try to define the space without having touch, without having depending on physical form, without kind of relying on the physical form, and simply want to understand the space, right? So then there's nothing you can talk about this, my space and your space, small space and big space, right? The space in the east, space in the west. So this whole when you kind of imagine or conceives, there's a certain space that I needed, or my space is bigger. It's whole depending on the physical form. But depending on the physical form, you can make the concept of my space and your space. Right? So it's a purely kind of looking into the space and trying to see the my space, your space. There's no. That's why I'm saying dependent arising of the my space and your space is depending on things that are not space, right? Things that are not space, by depending on it, you can see a different space, right? So I think here, this is how we say, without depending on the physical form, there is no such thing as even a space. Space means absence of obstructive contact. So to understand the absence of obstructive contact, right? To understand the absence of the obstructive contact, and you have to imagine, you have to conceive obstructive phenomena as a combinations. From the combining, you can see this is space, and that is not space. So similarly, when you say, oh, this is tall. So I think when you define someone or something as tall, and you have already compared with something that is shorter than it. So without depending on, without comparing, without having imagined the short, there is nothing you can define as tall. So the conventional reality is by comparing relatively things exist: short, tall, big, small, high, low. Right. So these are only, you can perceive them relatively. Right. So now, so things that are relatively existing, you want to find objectivity in them is impossible. So no objectivity or absence of objectivity in the reality, a reality that exists dependently, is essentially identical. No objectivity, therefore, relatively exists. Relatively exists, no objectively exists. So that's why ultimate in the conventional reality is they essentially identical. So to see them, it's a different way of looking at it. One perceptions that is by comparing, you look at the phenomena and you can see whole conventional reality by comparing. So without comparing and it looking for objectivity, you can see nothing. So there's two perceptions. One is objectively kind of, try to perceive something. One is comparing and trying to see something. So by comparing, you can see so many things, varieties, right? Varieties of things that exist. So by depending on the weather, depending on time, depending on your emotional, depending on the mood, you find something as good, and then very next moment, and it's not that good. And the very next moment, this is the most worst things that I have ever experienced. So this is dependent happening. Right? So that's why I'm saying ultimate in the conventional reality is essentially identical. And one is the ultimate, one is the conventional. So why there's two? Two because of the conception and distinctive. Because, right, the mind that's always comparing cannot see the ultimate truth. Mind that's seeking objectivity cannot see the relativities. So this is like your, so this, yeah, the
We're identical? Essentially identical?
essentially identical, conceptually distincted. So conventional perceptions, conventional kind of perceptions, worldly perceptions are like, the way they engage in object, like a kangaroo jumping, comparing things. This is good, this is bad, this is bad, right? Always zigzag. So that's how you see things, right? Good, bad. So objectivity is just single-pointedly penetrating into and try to find one single thing. Could not find anything. There is no such things. A single kind of independently exist. And then, so kind of what you have seen through the objectively analyzing what you have not seen. This is what you found ultimate. So I think to understand emptiness, you have to understand the conventional reality. How do they really exist? So conventional reality means relatively existing, right? Things that exist, good or bad, short or tall, by comparing. So the Sanskrit they use pratyatya samutpad. Pratyatya samutpad. So pratyatya means by changing you find something. And that change is depending on something else. So you found something. Right? You found something. You have defined something. You have identified and something in a single unit as an entity. So that entity that you have found or you have defined in a single unit is because of your thought. Like for example, we say 5 sensual object. So when you count the 5 senses, color, smell, taste, tactilities. So you are, when you give the name colors, so you are conceptually kind of identified in a single unit, right? Form, taste, tactilities is a different format. So you say, this is how some people think is the independent entity. Because you are kind of, you are identifying something independent from the rest of the sensual object. So this, who is doing that independently? Your thought is doing. So your thought says, this is the color, this is not the taste. This is the taste, not the smell and not the color. Right? So identifying a single unit, by that you cannot prove it is independent. Conceptually selecting independent is not necessarily they do exist by their own nature.
It just appears that way.
Yeah. And you can say, yesterday, if someone says, oh, you slept really late last night. And then you say, oh, that yesterday guy, he slept really late. So that's another guy. So today, I'm another person, right? So this is how you conceptually kind of identify an independent. So does this prove that you are independent from the person yourself last night sleeping? And you can say yogurt. Oh, and then you make the yogurt. Right, morning you what you call fermenting the milk, and then next morning you have yogurt. if the milk belonged to your friend and you just fermented it and morning is a yogurt, and then your friend says, "Where's my milk?" Right. So then you may say that, "Oh, that milk, or that milk is no longer exists. This is the yogurt. It's mine." So you are at the time you are kind of you are trying to make the yogurt independent from the milk. You say that one and this one's. So you are kind of selectively separating it. But in that does not, the way you say is not going to change the reality. Yogurt is never independent or different from the milk. If the yogurt is the result of the milk, so therefore it cannot be different from the milk. Sprout is no different from the seed. So criminal is no different from the crime activities. The seer is not independent from the activity of seeing. Smeller is not independent from the activity of smelling. So if you can prove that, and you can, for sure, you can say this. You cannot, the criminal. You can say you can kind of you can put him to jail. He did not do that. That was his previous time. That was yesterday with him. He committed that crime. This person is today is just Sunday. He didn't Saturday. You cannot prove that because law says this is no different from that person. So you are no different from your previous life. You're also no different from your future life. But conceptually, you are kind of making it conceptually identifying and independently. Present life, past life, future life, separating in the 3 times. So yesterday, I was kind of told by one of the students, he's Indian, they were saying, language has so much power, they said. Language has so much power. The way the language says, the way of saying can prove someone is guilty, someone is not that guilty, someone is innocent. Right? And then it says, yes, language is powerful as long as you are ignorant. If you are ignorant, language can change many things. Language, the first language is just a kind of, it's a sound that expresses what conceptually and fabricated. So language is nothing but expressing conceptual fabrication. So if language has that much power by itself, and then, right, if someone scolds you or says something bad about you in front of you in a different language, does it really change you, makes you, right? You say, okay. So sometimes some of you are very busy. They don't want to interpret what he's saying. Okay. So language makes powerful because of your interpretation. Right? He has thrown that much characteristic, and you collect everything, put together, and try to make sense out of it. And then that is making you unhappy or happy, right? So even a conventional reality, in that case, conventional reality is so powerful. Conventional reality, with conventional reality, sentient beings falling into lower realm. With conventional reality, sentient beings find the path to liberation and enlightenment. How? When the mind confused and deceived by the conventional reality, so that leads to lower realm. When minds understand as it is by the conventional reality, goes to the liberation and enlightenment. So, yeah. So here are two truths, essentially identical. There is nothing difference, essentially, right? So it appears to be two different things, as one is ultimate, one is conventional, because the two subject, one subjects objectively, right, kind of find, objectively finding, one is subjectively projecting, right? So with this mind, with subjectively projecting and find something, mind that is objectively searching for the reality and find nothing. That's why, right? So conventional and conventional reality and ultimate truths are the essentially same. It's a true mind with conventional mind, with subjective mind, and you try to find something, you found something. Your objective mind, you try to look in something, you could not find.
Two minds with their own object.
Yeah, it's the same about the table, about the tree, about the relations, about anything. So objectively, you try to see, you can't find anything because nothing really objectively exists. So this is like with glass, without glass, you see things. With sunglass, you see colorful. With no sunglass, like that. Any other questions? So emptiness here, the emptiness means empty of independent nature, empty of intrinsic natures, right? Empty of objectifications, right? So, and that empty kind of because of that empty, allow you to see relatively things do exist. Yeah. Chanju semjo rinpoche, maje pama, jejuji, keba nyamba, mewa nya, kone kodo pewas. Tonye tawa rinpoche, maje pama, jejuji, keba nyamba, mewa nya, kone kodo pewas. Pama semje tamje, dedan dejuji, nyendro tamje tatu towa. Chanju semba, kama sushu, dada kunji, molom jubjibi. Kanre rawe kowe, shingazo, pendan dewa, molo juwa ne. Jere semwa, tinzin jazo ji, sebe, sede badu, dejuji.
Precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have building mind increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have building mind increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all Father, Mothers, and deacons have all the happiness, and may all the romance be forever. Wherever there are Bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. And the sacred land surrounded by Snow Mountain. You were the source of all benefit and happiness. All powerful Chandrakirti Gyatso. You made it this world fantastic.
Thank you very much.